Okay, guys, welcome to Mrs. Gamer's walkthrough of a text-based game called Depression Quest. I know it sounds really fun, but I was looking on Steam, I saw it was free, and it tackles one of the really big issues in life. It's someone someone in your life who's been affected by depression. I'm affected by depression. So I thought I would give this game a go, and I hope all the sort of scathing reviews that it has is wrong. Because, people who suffer with depression deserve so much better than some shoddy representation in a game. But let's give it a go and see what happens. It's early on a Monday morning. You are a mid-20s human being. You have a significant other named Alex, who you are rather fond of, that you have been seeing exclusively for the past few months. The rest of your social circle consists of a variety of friends and acquaintances, some of whom you met at your day job, which is a little boring but pays the rent. You like to be doing more with your life, as would your parents, but you're still in the process of figuring out what that means and how to go about it. You're also dealing with motivation issues that sometimes makes dealing with these things difficult. You feel that this is probably your fault, and on bad days you can feel inwardly angry and down on yourself for being lazy, but you're not quite sure how you can break out of it, or how other people deal with these feelings and seem so very functional. You spend a lot of nights fixating on thinking about this, but never seem to do anything about it other than lose sleep. It is an unseasonably warm Wednesday evening. You've spent the past several hours at work. The past week or so you found your job motivation flagging more so than usual. You've been in a fog practically all day today, simply going through the motions without realising even what you've been doing half the time. And yet time seems to be moving at half speed. You're so checked out that when your boss approaches you to tell you that it's dead and you can go home early, it barely registers. As you walk home, the streets hiss from the recent rainfall. You know that your significant other will be in classes until late, another couple of hours at least. You briefly consider using this serendipitous solitude to catch up on that project that you've been working on haphazardly for the past few months. As soon as you think about the work that awaits you at home, you can feel the panic creeping in from the back of your brain, unbidden. All you can think about is how incredibly far behind you are, and the amount of work seems nothing less than insurmountable. By the time you arrive home and change out of your uncomfortable work clothes, the stress is weighing down on you like a heavy, wet wool blanket. Your computer seems to be staring you down from your desk. You want to sit down and work, but the mere thought of trying to work sends your stress levels flying. More than anything, you feel suddenly and absolutely exhausted, and feel a strong desire to simply hide in bed. Do you? Okay, I guess you can't order some food. You could sit down at your desk and try and make yourself do something. You can turn on the TV, telling yourself you need a quick half an hour to unwind. You crawl into bed because you're stressed and overwhelmed. Well, personally, I've done this quite a bit. I turn on the TV and have a little break before doing anything. Just a half hour of TV, you tell yourself, absently grasping for the remote. You don't so much sit down on the couch as sink into it. You turn on the TV and start going through your usual channel routine. After a few cycles of this, you realise that you're really not doing much more than thumb calisthenics and absently killing time. You check the clock and see that over 20 minutes have already passed since you sat down. As your self-imposed time limit creeps ever nearer, You become more and more anxious. You stand up and walk to the fridge, telling yourself, I'll just make a quick sandwich and get to work after that. Can't be productive on an empty stomach, right? As you eat, you start pacing around your apartment, heading past your bedroom in the process. You stop in the doorway as if physically unable to cross the threshold. Familiar waves of exhaustion start racking you, and you feel simultaneously tired and panicked. You close your door and head back to the couch. It's still early yet, you tell yourself. As long as I get to work in an hour, I'll have plenty of time to be productive. As you flip channels and let the CSI and Jeopardy reruns wash over you, you sink deeper into the couch, feeling at once encroached upon and shielded by being quite literally swallowed up by it. As the second hour draws nearer, sure enough you find yourself getting anxious and jittery. You repeat the fridge pace couch process a couple more times before you look at the clock and realise that several hours have passed, and not surprisingly, you've managed to get no work done. You crawl into bed, acutely aware of the fact that you have work in the morning and that any opportunity you had to catch up on your own creative endeavours today was squandered. You're feeling so disgusted with yourself that when Alex calls to talk to you on her way home from class, you simply say you had a really rough day at work and you're trying to rest up before your shift tomorrow. She says she understands and wishes you a good night, though you can't help but notice that she sounds slightly disappointed. Ironically, the stress of potentially upsetting your partner compounds with the stress of not having gotten anything done this evening and the stress of having to go to work tomorrow. The buzzing of anxiety in your brain melts together with your body's utter physical exhaustion, and you sink into a semi-hypnagogic anxious funk, too tired to try and work, but too anxious to fall asleep for several hours. Oh, apparently, it says at the minute I am very depressed. You spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating yourself and having very little energy or motivation. Okay. It's a mild Friday afternoon. Alex calls you from one of her classes, telling you that there's going to be a really awesome birthday party tonight at her apartment that one of her roommates is throwing. You've hung out with this roommate a few times with Alex and you get along well enough, but aren't particularly close. You don't have work in the morning and have nothing else in particular to do tonight. You are feeling kind of run down, but you have been fatigued most of the time lately. You mention that you're feeling ill because you're not sure how else to explain those feelings to someone else, and say that you aren't sure that you can make it tonight. There's a second of silence over your phone, but you can swear you can hear the sound of your partner's face fall. She tries to convince you anyway. You haven't seen her this week, and she sounds pretty insistent that you come over. She even drops a few suggestively worded hints that you can stay over with them tonight after the party. What do you do? You can agree to go. You can say that you're really not just feeling well and you can't make it. Well, I would agree to go. Yeah. So I'm going to go with that. You agree to go, even though you're not really feeling social. You know it's important to Alex and you'd really like to see her. Seeing her does make you feel better sometimes, and you hope that this is the case tonight, even if it does mean dealing with all the usual social anxiety. The time to leave rolls around and you grab your overnight bag. Alex's apartment is a short walk away and there are already people hanging out on the porch. You feel your chest tighten as you approach the building and try and steel your nerves. You quickly find your partner chatting away with the birthday girl, and Alex immediately lightens up when she sees you. I'm so happy you came. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it. A young man taps her on the shoulder and she turns back to you to apologise and let you know that they have to do something for the party. Alex hands you a beer and plants a kiss on your cheek before going off to deal with whatever came up. As you look around, you don't see anyone else you recognise. And you have some more choices you can make. You could stand in the same spot unsure of what to do, put your bag in Alex's room to avoid the crowd. You can cling to the back wall, sip your beer and wait for your girlfriend to return. Or you could proceed to drink in earnest, hoping it makes you feel less uncomfortable. Well, all of them sound like something I would do. I guess I would... I'll have a drink. After Alex walks away, you're not quite sure what to do with yourself. Scanning the party for familiar faces yields nothing, and you're not sure where your girlfriend or the birthday girl got off to. You look at the beer in your hand. You know you care a lot less about everything in general when tipsy, but you know you should avoid getting drunk and possibly emotional. You quickly down the beer, hoping that it will loosen you up a little. You down a few more as quickly as your stomach will let you handle the carbonation comfortably, and wait for it to take effect. By the time it does, Alex has already returned and is introducing you to people. However, all that drinking accomplished was making you even more tired and unfocused, and you stick to your girlfriend for the rest of the night, staying fairly quiet in group conversations. Later that night, as the two of you are both tipsy and dozing off, Alex cuddles up to you and lightly slurs, "I'm really glad you turned up tonight. To be honest, I really didn't think you'd show. It's really cool you did, really." You know she meant it lovingly, but you're not quite sure how you feel about that statement. It's a little afternoon on a muggy Saturday. Your mother has come over for a surprise visit, claiming loudly that she doesn't see you enough, so she's decided to invite herself over. As you converse, she walks around your place and you get the distinct impression that you're being inspected. "So what's going on with you lately?" she asks abruptly. Taken somewhat aback by this left fielder, you tell her that you're not sure what she means. She repeats the question, saying that you haven't seemed like yourself lately. She gestures to the dirty dishes piled in the sink and notes the fact that you haven't called or visited in a while. Your reticence only seems to spur her on even more. She pressures you, asking if you're having problems at work or with Alex, and you're beginning to feel increasingly battered by her sudden, well-meaning but overwhelming inquisition. Under her questions, you've become increasingly uncomfortable. You want to be able to explain to her how you've been feeling, but the truth is you're not really sure yourself. Nothing horrific has happened at work or with your significant other or friends or anything like that, but all the same you can't deny that lately you've just felt drained and as though you're not really here. You wish you could tell your mother these things, but she hasn't been approachable about negative emotions in the past. She's the kind of person who holds the opinion that the solution to any problem is to simply try harder and maintain a positive attitude, a stance that has reared its head in the past conversations when you've begun to explore the subject with her. You know she's unlikely to be understanding, and you feel the energy drain out of you when you imagine what would happen if you managed to blurt out everything you're feeling. What do? You can try and be honest with her anyway. You could tell her that everything's fine and thank her for asking, or you could change the subject. Well, she is your mum, so although it makes you anxious, you should be honest with her. You attempt to tell your mother how you're feeling, despite initial misgivings that you have about doing so. Finding the right words for how you're feeling makes trying to untangle Christmas lights, searching for the dead bulb in a cluttered mess. She watches you intently and audibly sighs before you can clearly articulate anything. Unfortunately, she reacts predictably. An attitude like that won't get you anywhere. You need to work harder at getting what you want instead of sitting around feeling sad about it. Nothing good will happen unless you make it happen. She isn't angry or spiteful as she tells you this. You try to explain that it's not a matter of that, but you can tell that you're not getting anywhere. The frustration chokes the words in your throat and you give up on trying to push the subject further. You know she's giving you the advice that makes sense to her and genuinely wants the best for you. However, she doesn't understand that it's not as simple as somehow deciding to be positive or work harder. It's that those things aren't viable options because of these feelings. You accept your defeat and the conversation drifts onto other subjects. She leaves after chiding you to call her more often and take better care of yourself. You sigh heavily as you close the door behind her and spend the next few hours laying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Okay, according to this, I'm still very depressed, and I spend a large amount of time sleeping, hating myself, and having very little energy. Which is, it's kind of discouraging, actually. But I'll keep going for the time being and see what happens in the next few scenarios. It is a lazy Sunday morning. You are idly clicking around online as your phone rings. Sam, a co-worker of yours that you're friendly with, asks how you are and makes hurried small talk with you. You typically only ever talk to him on the phone when one of you needs a shift covered, so it's slightly awkward. You're waiting in anticipation for him to ask you to come in on short notice, when he veers the conversation in a completely different direction. How do you feel about cats? He asks. Mine had kittens a few weeks ago, and I'm having an awfully hard time finding a home for the last one of the litter. You don't have any pets, right? It takes you a moment to process this new information, and you're caught off guard as he begins to earnestly try and sell you on the idea of taking the last kitten off his hands. It's not something that you had specifically considered before, and he seems fairly insistent. She's a real sweetheart, really loves people. She's got all her shots and already taken care of, and the vet says she's healthy as a horse. I can bring her over by your place tonight if you're interested. You look around your apartment and try to picture a cat in it as he continues to tell you about how cute she is. You tell him that this is all kind of sudden and that you don't have anything for the kitten set up here. Oh, don't worry about that. I can bring over a litter box and food and all that, since you'd be really helping me out of a fix. It's the least I could do. I just don't want to have to put her in a shelter. You can't help but feel like you're being guilt-tripped, but you decide to give it some serious consideration. It does get awfully lonely around your apartment, and it might feel less empty with a cat around. However, since you've been feeling so down, it might not be a good idea to take on the responsibility of a cat, even if they are fairly low maintenance. What do? You could become a cat owner because you want the companionship. You could decline because you're not in a good enough place to be taking on more responsibility. Or you could decline because you don't like cats. Well, in that situation, I think I would take the cat. It would be nice to have something cute and fluffy padding around your apartment. So I'll choose that. You accept the offer of the kitten and hang up shortly after making arrangements for when your co-worker can drop her off tonight. After hanging up, you worry about if you've suddenly taken on a responsibility that you can't handle, and hope you don't make a small animal suffer for it. You're not entirely sure what to expect, and you spend the rest of the afternoon researching cat care online and trying to think of a name. The evening rolls around and you hear a knock at your door, startling you out of reading Wikipedia entirely too hard. You take possession of the small, terrified black and white kitten in a carrier, along with everything you need to start taking care of her. You take her into your bedroom, close the door, and open the door to the carrier excitedly. She cowers in the back of it, and you back off. Feeling slightly defeated, you remember what you researched on introducing a kitten to a new home, and leave her alone to go mess around on your computer, hopefully checking over your shoulder every so often to see if she has come out yet. She hides in her carrier, periodically making a sorrowful cat howls long enough for you to start worrying that she already doesn't like you. By the time you go to bed, she's curled up at the foot of it, eyeing you nervously before falling asleep. Over the next few days, you gain her trust, and she begins affectionately following you around, sleeping on you and hopping up on you any time you sit down to do some work. And even though I just got a new cat, I'm still very depressed. Now, I know if I was in that situation, I'd be really happy. But, okay, it's obviously different for everyone. I think I might stop it here, actually. There'll be a review video coming up shortly about this playthrough. If you guys want me to continue, just drop a comment and I will. But I'm not sure about this game. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys when I put the next video up. Bye bye!